Perfect, perfect. All right, so first let me welcome everyone and thank you for attending. I know your time is valuable. It's the one thing we can't replace. So thanks for spending it with us to hopefully learn something beneficial for either your laboratory or your practice or your milling center. So once again, thanks for joining. This is episode 3 of our 4-part series on the DESS PNP workflow. PNP stands for plug and play. We are nothing if not creative. So that stands for plug and play. And what that basically means is it's a validated process that if you follow that process, you can piggyback off of our FDA clearance and produce custom abutments for your customers, for your patients that use our FDA clearance to make you compliant with the FDA. So who am I? Who cares? But I'm Darren Lockaby. I'm the president and general manager here at DESS USA. I've been in dental, 22-ish years. I started with Nobel back, I think, when Moses was a baby, and ended up at Dentsply Sirona for 10, 12 years. I've run commercial organizations for both of those groups. To include, I ran the Atlantis business for about 3 years here in North America. I've now been with DESS for the last 2 years, running their business here in the U.S. So again, just thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. So PNP, plug and play. What is it? Again, it's a 6-step process that allows you to produce custom abutments inside of your facility and use our FDA clearance. You have to follow the menu. It is a validated process, but as long as you do that, you can confidently produce custom appliances for your patients that you don't have to go through a QMS process. You just follow the menu and boom, there's your abutment. You can document that you're following it and you're good. So again, in the first episode we covered scanning and downloading. In the second episode we covered designing. In today's episode we are going to actually cover milling. It's a very important process. We have several milling partners. One of them is with us today. We have Tony from Axsys Milling. From Axsys, and they represent and are the exclusive distributor of one of our milling partners, VersaMill. So welcome, Tony. We look forward to hearing from you on the milling section. So the DESS part you utilize in this particular step of the process are our pre-mills, right? Or our blanks, our titanium blanks. So we are, what makes them different, or why should you use them? First off, they're FDA cleared for the PNP. Second, they give a stable connection to the mill and the holder with a pull down and lock system. They give you really a lot of freedom in design from what I'm about to talk about with angulated screw channel to our traditional titanium blanks. The traditional titanium blanks give you 20 millimeters of millable length. And you can get them in 2 different diameters. You can get them in a 10 millimeter diameter or a 14 millimeter diameter. So you have a lot of flexibility depending on the needs of your case, of your patient, to utilize our blanks for. It has some controls that allow you to get a nice emergence, so you don't have to do it one time. And the connection gives you super reliable, the right fit every time. All that means is it's going to be efficient for you. It's going to produce high quality restorations for you, and it's going to give you predictable outcomes and allow you to keep the process in-house instead of having to outsource if that's your desire. One of the things we've added here in the last 12 months or so is the traditional tie blanks are great. But sometimes, you end up with an implant in a position that straight angulation becomes difficult. So we have angulated screw channel pre-mills. that come with a pre-drilled screw access hole at a 25-degree angle. It just gives you a little more flexibility when you have a more difficult case or an off-angle case, and allows you to basically utilize these when needed. We have them for 8 different connections. So we have them for the Noble Active and the Straumann BLT. We've had them for those for about a year. We have just added and launched in the US. Julie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we just received our shipment, so we should be adding those to our store, if not today, certainly in the next week. But that will be added to our ASC armamentarium with Straumann BLX, a Neodent, Screwvent, the EV system, Hyacin, and the BioHorizons internal connection. So an additional 6 connections for our AFC angulated screw channel. And this is in addition to our standard titanium blanks where we have 25 plus different connections. So the reality is, we give you really flexible options with the blanks themselves, but then we give you a wide range of connections to do them on. So, I won't say every implant case that comes into your facility you'll be able to restore with us using PNP, but almost all. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of value. Enough about me and hearing from me. I'm going to turn it over to Greg Harris, who I've known for a couple of years. He's super knowledgeable. He's been in the milling business for a long time. He's been in the dental industry for a long time, which is a nice way of saying he's old like me. But I'm going to let Greg kind of carry the bridge here between DESS and Axsys here, and I'm going to be quiet. So Greg, if you're on, take it away.
And I'll ask that always the same question. Can you hear me now? So if you can, then I'll start.
Yep, I gotcha.
Yep. I think I have 5 minutes in between the important stuff, and I wish I could see and know everybody on this call today, because there's probably folks that work in the lab, there's folks that own the lab, there's people considering milling, there's people with tons of experience. But I think I want to bring it, if you just pop up the next slide, Darren, oh boy, I wish I could have said more. There. Okay, good. I think I just want to put this out to everybody that I've been in the industry. I was at the hospital when Moses was born, so I'm older than Darren. But part of innovation since the 80s and the 90s, and in fact, helped launch Procera, if anybody remembers those things. So always, though, this is about you, the customer, and your customers more importantly. And why I pop this up is, if you're an innovator, you're already milling blanks, you figured it out, you bought this mill and this scanner, and you're doing your designs with Mixer, and you've got your recipe that you enjoy like a typical laboratory person. If you're a little less, if you're risk averse, meaning you're never the first, or at least on dental technology, you wait to see if it works out. You tend to be sitting there waiting, is this something I want to try? And all I'll say to you is, now that it's been figured out, PNP allows you to reduce the risk and the wasted revenue or costs of figuring out a workflow yourself and hoping you're safe. The other question I'll ask you is it your customer that's asking you to do this because they want custom mill or they want things faster? Or is your customer asking you for less, meaning lower pricing, and you're hoping to take on a task like this in which to reduce your costs and get more control, meaning you can mill an abutment this morning and get it out on that rush case where you can't outsource an abutment and get it done in that period of time. So think about, for those on the call, and again, apologies, I can't see everybody and where you're at in this phase. I'm just saying to everybody, is this about you or is this about your customer? Because in most cases, milling and abutment is a process, whereas dentists, customers tend to buy from you products. And products is actually the abutment and the crown and your expertise and the way you give direction. So again, for innovators, they tend to have been doing this for a long time. For the most of us are in the middle to, let's say, late majority, and that you're now just considering it for the reasons I identified: control over time and deliverable, cost, the pressures and cost compression that we're seeing in the marketplace. And I think there was a good question asked, is there a certified milling center that DESS suggested, which would answer the question of access, meaning you're a lab in some market where all of your neighbors won't do it for you, and you're tired of sending it all across the country trying to get something and depending on UPS to deliver it on time. So I think the most important thing to do is to look to where you're at, why you're going down the road to do this, and is a closed system like a Apple phone. Apple phone has less options, but it's simple and you just hit the button. Whereas Android has all the options, but you have to spend the time and have the interest to learn how to do it. PNP is more like Apple. It's more easy button. And I think you're going to see Tony speak to that. And so I think at this point, Darren, if I've covered sort of the whys or what to consider, if that's the case, if I covered it effectively, I think we can pass on to Tony to get to the part that everybody wants, which is how.
Perfect. Thanks, Greg. And again, last here from me is thanks for your time. I would ask, at the end of Tony's presentation, we will be having a raffle to give away some wonderful prizes from both your friends at DESS and your friends at Axsys. So that raffle will be at the end, and you have to be present. So I just encourage you to stay on to the end, and I will stop sharing. And Tony, the floor is yours.
Beautiful. Thank you, gentlemen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. It's showing the full presentation, correct?
It is.
Beautiful. Okay, well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. As Darren and Greg mentioned, my name is Tony Elliotine. I am an account manager here at Axsys Dental Solution. So to go with the running joke here, I read about Moses in a textbook in history class. And so I don't know if I have quite the experience that the other two guys have, but I do have 11 years of experience here in the I studied biomedical engineering at Michigan, and I was hired into Axsys as an engineer. And I worked quite a bit on development, doing some support, implementation, validation, things of that nature, and then jumped over to the account management side about 3 years ago. So that really gives me a nice background from both sides and to be able to answer a lot of questions, whether they're technical or even account related. So I want to thank everyone for the time, and I'll jump right into it. So today I'm going to spend some time speaking about producing abutments, different things to consider, who Axsys is, who we are, our partnership with DESS. I'll dive a little bit deeper into regulatory considerations, and then finally at the end we'll have some time for questions. So who's Axsys? Axsys started a little over 30 years ago at this time, and we have two sides of the business. There is an industrial side and the dental side. The industrial side focuses on supporting and selling a software called Mastercam. Some of you may have heard of it, but Mastercam is the #1 CAM software used across all industries in the world for milling, mainly on the industrial side. And on that side of the business, we focus mostly on being able to understand manufacturing, understand milling, understand CAM software, and supporting it to be able to provide the best level of support for our customers. And this ranges from multiple industries like automotive, aerospace, medical, even milling components for boats. So we've seen a ton of industries, a ton of cases, a ton of uses, and we know what the mill is supposed to look like and what an industrial mill is supposed to do. Back in 2008, kind of when the economy took a turn, somebody came to us and said, well, you should look at dental. They're milling in dental. And so we did. And so we tried to apply our same business model, a heavy focus on technical aspect and support, and then try to provide a product that was industrial grade to the dental industry. And quite honestly, when we first got into it, we looked at a lot of the name brands that were out at the time, and we were a little shocked because a lot of the components that we were used to seeing on industrial mills just weren't present on some of the dental mills. You know, you either see mills made out of plastic or mills without industrial grade components, non-accurate motors. And for us, it kind of turned us off because we were like, man, this is going to be a support nightmare, and our business is built on support, and we don't really want to go down that road. And so we kept looking, and we ended up finding a manufacturer in South Korea. And we went to them and said, hey, here's our expertise. Here's what we know. If we provide you some specs and some information, could you build a machine that we're looking for? And they were willing to work with us. And that's how the VersaMill was born, which is one of our flagship products. So what we realized is in the industry, there really isn't a good foundational distributor who understands technically how to properly support products, especially back then. I think things are changing now as the industry evolves, but especially back then, there wasn't really a lot of distributors who understood how to support things. And so when we came in and we put our best foot forward from a support perspective, it got us quite a bit of recognition and helped us build the brand. And because of that, we've won a number of awards, either from the dental side or the industrial side, and really helped us grow specifically the VersaMill brand. We service over 2,000 companies at this point, which I think is pretty cool. The dental companies that you might know, like Dentsply, Argan, Glidewell, or even some industrial customers like Ford, Boeing, Whirlpool, things like that. And it really gives us a nice broad exposure to all the different areas and industries that are milling, and we can pull things from each one and learn as much as we can along the way. So all this put together is something that we like to call the Axsys advantage. You might see that in some of our marketing. You might, if you ever heard one of our presentations before, you might heard that phrase Axsys advantage. Essentially what this is the advantage that we have with our expertise. Anything from CNC services to software development, to manufacturing services, to IT, to development, really a lot of things you can think of from a CAM and machining perspective, we can offer our input in and hopefully provide a service. So putting numbers, pulled some of our current customers to determine our average support time. We really feel like this is what sets Axsys apart from a lot of the other distributors in the area. Especially here in the US. And the feedback we received was roughly 60 to 70% of our support calls are answered upon the first attempt. So you call us with a question, we can usually take care of it right then and there on the spot. 20 to 30% might take an hour to figure something out and get back to you. 10 to 20% might take a day. And then we do have some cases that require some long-term development and some validation, which might take some longer. This is usually like developing a fixture or developing a workflow or a process, or like the PNP that we're going to talk about here. And one thing that we realized is that same customer-centric focus is something that's shared with DESS, which really makes us great partners and something that we're excited to share with you here. We partnered together because we each provide expertise, precision, repeatability, knowledge, and support. And all of this allows us to bring the best implant solution possible to the masses. So that's a bit about who we are, our relationship with DESS. So let's talk about regulatory considerations. It's a very complex subject. I completely understand that. And it sometimes can be a little overwhelming. I know when I learned about it in school or when I learned about it on the job, I was definitely overwhelmed, and quite frankly, can still be overwhelming because it changes so frequently. But there's a lot to think about from a regulatory perspective, and some of the common questions that I get include, can I mill abutments? What does it take to mill abutments? What does it cost to be FDA compliant? Will I get in trouble if I don't follow FDA guidelines? So there's a lot to think about there, and given that we're limited in time here, I can't dive into too much detail about each one, but I do want to take a 30,000-foot view and answer some of these questions along the way. And at the end of the presentation, you'll see my contact information, and I'm more than happy to schedule a call with you. We can go one-on-one and talk about your specific situation and where you fit in. So there are two methods to being FDA compliant. The first one, and the one that's been around for a while now, is to become a validated milling center, also known as a VMC. So basically what this means is that you're FDA compliant and you're able to produce implant components because you follow the steps that the FDA requires. And that includes having a quality management system, also known as a QMS system, doing a lot of paperwork, paying the FDA tens of thousands of dollars or paying a consultant tens of thousands of dollars, ongoing yearly costs, milling tons of abutments in your facility, sending them out to the manufacturer, and having them checked for approval. And after all of this that you do, fingers crossed, you get approved and you become a validated milling center. And then, kind of like what Greg was saying, it's a completely open system and you can essentially mill almost anything you want. This makes sense for some people, especially some of the larger labs that want to have that open flexibility. But based off our conversations and what we're hearing from the industry, it's not realistic for the masses. And I think the FDA knew that, because now there's a second method called the PNP, or plug and play. Essentially what this is it's a recipe approved by the FDA, and as long as you use the components in the recipe, the FDA says that you're compliant. There's no FDA registration, pretty basic documentation, significantly less costs, significantly less headache to go through, and it's a lot faster because you don't have to wait through the whole time for the approval process. So basically, you just have to follow the workflow that was approved, and then you're good to go. And Axsys and DESS, we've worked together to button this up and provide one PNP solution that you can just purchase and be ready. This is a similar slide to what Darren showed. So this diagram shows the PNP workflow. So you start with a FDA compliant DESS Premill. You work with an approved scanner. You download approved libraries, use an approved design and CAM software, mill it on a VersaMill, and then at the end of it, you have an FDA compliant prosthesis. Here's a breakdown of the recipe. So this shows what has been approved by the PNP, what's already submitted and waiting for approval. There might be some changes to this image today, as it does change pretty frequently as things get approved. But many of the major brands are already included, like exocad 3Shape. There's some scanners included, VersaMill milling machines, DESS Premills. If you're interested in knowing exactly what your workflow looks like, I recommend at the end either ask the question or we can schedule some time for a one-on-one to really dig deep into your situation. So what does the FDA actually care about? Well, they want to make sure that you are able to produce something that's precise, able to produce repeatable parts, make sure the parts are accurate, and they want it to be predictable. And how do you get this? Well, you have to use components that will lead you to that outcome. So use a VersaMill, use a high-end CAM software, use high-end tooling, use DESS Premills. Darren already touched a little bit about the DESS Premills. So what I'll do moving forward in the next couple of slides is provide some information regarding everything else in this workflow. So let's start with mills. The VersaMill family has a number of mills in its collection. We like to group mills based on your needs. So for example, are you running 1 to 20 abutments a month? Are you doing over 200 abutments a month? Are you running one shift? Or are you running 3 shifts? Do you run 5 days a week or do you run 7 days a week? Depending on your needs, we have a mill that we can fit into your workflow. We have a classic collection, signature collection, and a speed collection. So let's start with our light duty mills. In this image here, you'll see two of them. You'll see the AX314DW and the AI137DW. We're really excited about the AI mill. It's the newest in our lineup. It's the first dental mill that uses AI to assist with the calibration process, which leads to a more accurate, repeatable result. You can also use these to mill not just abutments, but be more versatile, like mill your zirconia, mill your PMMA, or even mill titanium bars. So these are great for anywhere up to 100 abutments a month. We recommend these for smaller to medium-sized facilities. They have the size and the torque to be able to produce FDA-compliant DESS abutments without sacrificing quality at a reasonable price. If you need something with more production, then this jumps us into our heavier duty option, such as the AX500, the AX200, or the AX726. These are great for unlimited production of abutments and bars. Same concept as the last mills. You can use them to be quite versatile for your zirconia cases, like all-on-4 cases, PMMA, cobalt chrome, really any dental material out there you can mill on these machines. They have the power and the specs to allow you to produce the maximum number of units possible, and they're great for offices that require a larger production volume. For the most part, what you're looking at here is you want a heavy-duty, sturdy machine with industrial components with the power and torque able to cut what you need to cut like butter. And lastly, for those wanting some automation, we do have two machines that have a disc changer available. These are the 5X500L and the AX726 Pro. These are great because you can load either 12 or 18 holders. You can fill them all with DESS Premills, and you can take advantage of lights out manufacturing, set it up the day before, go home for the day, come back in the morning, and you can have 50 plus abutments ready to go. You can mix and match as well if you're doing some bars, some other implant prosthesis, some abutments, and really take advantage of the automation. So that was a little bit about the hardware. Moving on to software. At Axsys, we're big fans of Hyperdent, Hyperdent CAM software. It's a pretty popular CAM software out there. We like Hyperdent because it offers an optimized user-friendly workflow, which makes it easy for you to learn and, quite frankly, easy for us to train, which we really like. It has a reduced processing time, so you're not sitting at your desk waiting for things to calculate or to process. It has high quality and efficient toolpaths, and it has lots of customization options, which are very important because what we found is when we're working with clients, Lab A and Lab B have different needs on what they want out of the mill. And so giving us the ability to support them properly and make a user-specific experience for everybody was really, really important and a big value add. One thing I want to note about software is vastly underrated part of the workflow, as it usually dictates quality just as much, if not more, than hardware. So it's important to pick a software that can offer you optimal results and work with a distributor who truly knows how to use and develop the strategies. A lot of times we'll get phone calls like, hey, I'm having a quality issue with my abutments, XYZ is happening, I think something going on with the mill. Then as we dig a little bit deeper, most of the time it has to do with software. Something going on in the strategy, something going on in the calculation, and people don't really think of it in that manner. So I do like to highlight that whenever I get a chance. Another very underrated component in the workflow is tooling, or also known as burrs. At Axsys, we partner with the #1 tooling provider in the world across all industries, not just dental, to provide the Masterpiece line tooling. Masterpiece tooling comes exclusively from us, and we have an active collaboration with that manufacturer to try to produce custom tools that really push the envelope from a speed perspective, a quality perspective, or a coding perspective. Masterpiece tools are engineered with geometries and coatings that are specifically for titanium premills. We also have tools specifically for zirconia, for titanium bars, and so on and so forth. And they're also continuously being developed, and so they try to push quality, they try to push coatings to make sure it doesn't wear off, and they try to make sure it lasts as long as possible so you're getting your ROI. We really want to continue developing to make sure we're bringing an accurate, repeatable result and to make sure that this PNP stays FDA compliant. So that's a little bit about the workflow. I want to touch a little bit on what are some key factors to milling DESS Premills. We spoke with a number of our clients who mentioned the following key areas, and we use that to develop our strategy for the PNP workflow. Keep in mind, a lot of these are customizable. We can change and tweak as needed, but for the most part, these are some commonalities that we found. Surface finish. First is the surface finish, especially on the subgingival area. We've repeatedly heard that this must be as smooth a finish as possible. Anything touching the gums, it's got to be as smooth as possible. And so to achieve this, we use custom tooling and a fine strategy for milling the abutment subgingival area. We actually separate the milling from the post to the subgingival to the margin, so everything has its own surface quality. And the cool thing is, with our solution, we're able to achieve a sub-micron surface finish down here. It actually looks almost polished when it comes off the mill. Next is probably the most difficult thing to get correct. It's the blend between the interface and the subgingival area. This has to be a smooth blend with no shifts, meaning the subgingiva to the interface has got to be a nice smooth transition along the way. The shift shows up when the software and hardware do not match. So what does that mean? Well, the mill has a mill holder in there, and the holder is holding a premill, a DESS Premill. And Hyperdent thinks it knows where the premill is in space. Well, if for whatever reason, maybe there's a crash on the machine, maybe there was an electrical storm which caused some of the electronics to act a little wonky, maybe something was shifted from a human error. If for whatever reason the software and the hardware don't match, that's when you're going to see the shift, either forward, back, left, right, up or down, and you no longer get that nice blend. To fix this, we actually have a automated high precision calibration routine that we run to precisely locate the fixture. It's nice, you just put a high-end probe in the mill, it comes down, it touches the premills in multiple locations, finds out where the premill is in space, communicates with Hyperdent to ensure that the whole process is kind of bulletproof. Next is the marginal area. So we've heard two thought processes here. Number one is the margin should be a feather edge, really small edge. Number two is that they like a small ledge where the margin is. Both solutions are available in the PNP. One thing that I like to note when I get asked this question is this is typically controlled in the design, but either option is no problem at all for us. As long as that you design it the way you want it, Hyperdent and the mill can take care of the rest and really give you the outcome you're looking for. And lastly, our cement grooves. So these are controlled in Hyperdent and the mill. They're not controlled in the design. In this case, you would design the abutment smooth, and then in Hyperdent, you could go in and you could set your own user spec on what you want the retention grooves to look like. So whether you want no grooves, deep grooves, fine grooves, really any option is available in this PNP workflow. This is kind of a fun slide I wanted to show in here. It shows some of the cool things that you can do with DESS Premills. So in this example, we had a customer come to us and ask us to come up with a workflow for milling locator abutments out of a DESS Premill. And they worked with our engineering team, and we were able to create these custom locator abutments. I think these are kind of fascinating. It does a good job of illustrating out-of-the-box thinking using Axsys and DESS's expertise together and really coming up with a custom solution. Cool. When I present and when I discuss abutments, I typically get a number of questions about other implant prosthesis, mainly bars. So I wanted to wrap up the webinar by speaking for a few minutes about different areas to think about when it comes to bars. From an FDA perspective, milling non-engaging interfaces with the VersaMill is compliant. Using the VersaMill and Hyperdent, you're good to go. Use DESS scan flags, and you're fine in that aspect. When you are looking to do something outside of that, so for example, if for any reason you want to mill an engaging interface, well, that requires you to become a validated milling center, going back to my original slide about being a VMC. Anything engaging is kind of a gray area with the FDA, but anything not engaging, for the most part, you're good to go. So I do know that milling an engaging interface on a bar is not common. It's not something you typically see, but we do get that question from every now and then. So I wanted to provide that context, at least here in the presentation. So similar to abutments, what are some things to consider when you're looking at bars, especially milling bars? Number one is implant divergence, and this is completely limited by the mill you're using. So for example, if you have two posterior implants that are divergent by, let's call it 60 degrees, and the mill you're using only has a plus or minus 25-degree rotation in their limiting axis, well, that gives you 50 degrees, and you're kind of limited, and you're not able to reach the angle you need to reach to mill the highly divergent angles. This is something that I get a question about all the time, especially during the discovery phase, is nobody really thinks to look at the limiting axis of the rotaries. For the VersaMills, most of our mills have a plus or minus 30-degree rotation, so you get 60 degrees of divergence. And some of our mills have plus or minus 34, which gives you a little bit extra. For the most part, with the plus or minus 30, you can mill all the multi-units and most of the implant level non-engaging abutments. There are some areas where you get out of that, but for the most part, we're able to mill most of the bars that we see. Number two is surface finish. Very similar to the abutments, surface finish is completely customizable. Any surface finish is acceptable with the FDA. However, what we most commonly are asked for is a very fine, almost polished finish at the bottom. Again, anything touching gums, and a rougher finish at the top for mainly cement retention or retention of the overlay going on top. And finally, number three, this is precision and fit. This is the most important part, and again, is completely dependent on the solution you're using. In order to ensure a good fit, you have to use proper tooling, accurate mills, high-end strategies, high-end scanners, proper implant components. All of this kind of gets tied in and gives you a good fit. Sometimes if you get to the end and you mill a bar and you do the one screw test and you have a little bit of rocking, initial thought process is to blame the last thing that the bar was on, which is usually the mill, or maybe blame the strategies. But from my experience, especially working on the engineering side, a lot of the issues come from the design and from the scanning side. So maybe one of the scan flags wasn't screwed down all the way, right? Sticking up a little bit, and the rest of them are flush. And then when you get to the end, you do have a little bit of that rocking, right? Maybe some of the, when you're doing the overlay in your design software, whether exocad or 3Shape, and you're overlaying on the scan body, maybe the overlay was slightly shifted or slightly tilted one way or another. And then, you export the bar and it goes in and gets milled, and then, you're stuck at the end. A nice saying that we like to use is garbage in, garbage out. So if you have poor data going in, you're probably going to have a poor manufactured result coming out. Awesome. So I wanted to kind of wrap it up with just by touching on our expected mill times. This is another common question that we get. Usually at the end of these presentations, people want to know, what can I expect from a mill time perspective? It helps to figure out like an ROI and help to figure out your cases and your workload and what you're trying to do. And so in this case, with this presented solution, we can mill a crown right around 10 to 18 minutes, abutments and right around 15 to 25 minutes, zirconia full arches usually under 100 minutes, PMMA full arches about an hour to an hour and a half, titanium bars usually under 100 minutes, and then dentures right around 2 hours. One thing I really like to point out here is there is a give and take between quality and time. So the longer that the tool touches the part, usually the better quality you're going to get. So longer mill time, better quality. Shorter mill time, sacrificing a little bit of quality. We've spent a lot of time working on our strategies in Hyperdent to come up with ideal quality and mill times, but we do customize these quite a bit depending on what your needs are. So maybe from in your practice or your lab, you don't want to touch the bar at all when it comes down, or you don't want to touch the abutment at all when it's out. You don't mind it taking an extra 2 to 5 minutes to mill. That's not a problem at all. It's something that we can definitely do to customize for you. Okay, with that, I would like to say thank you for your time. Again, that's my information there at the bottom. I know this is kind of a 30,000-foot view, like I mentioned, but if you want to speak about your workflow, your situation, and all the components you have, and what it would look like to bring on the PNP and possibly start milling abutments, then let me know. I'm open to scheduling a one-on-one call, or feel free to contact me via email, text, call, email, any option works, and I'm more than happy to help. So with that, I'll pass it back to open it up for questions.
Well, first off, Tony, thank you. That was very good. We enjoyed it.
Of course. See if I stop sharing here.
It's awesome, Tony. Thanks. Very informative. As we open up for questions here, I did want to, just the guys at Axsys, Tony, Ryan, they've been great partners. And besides all that, look, the Versa mill is it's a workhorse mill. It's a fantastic mill. We're partnered, we're validated with a lot of different mills. Versa mill being one, and number one, we don't have a lot of problems with them, or don't hear about a lot of problems when they run well. They give you what you're asking for, and two, they are a machine, so things happen, right? And when they happen, Tony and Ryan and team have been very responsive. So all I can tell you is they've been great to partner with for us, and for our client base. I'm sure they would be for you if you are looking to be in the market or looking for support. So I will thank Tony. I will thank Ryan. I will thank the Axsys team. They've been great partners. I'm going to certainly open it up for questions, and I want to end it really with, we know you have options. You have options where you spend your time. You have options where you send your money and who you do business with. We are happy to be one of those options, and we want to be able to earn your business. I want to be more than just somebody you cut a check to, and we want to do that by providing you with value, differentiated value. We want to do that providing high quality for you, and we want to do all of that with in an affordable way that you can make money without sacrificing on the quality or the value that you're providing your customer and your patient. So we know you have options. We hope we're at the top of that list. And I'll thank Tony again. And now, I said I would be quiet earlier. I mean it this time. I'm going to be quiet. I'll turn it over to Julie to take questions and do the raffle.
Awesome. Okay. I'll give it a moment. If anyone has any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat, or if you want to, you can disable your mute and speak as well if you have a question, and give that a minute or so. All right. Looks like we don't have too many questions, so we're here for the raffle. So we'll go ahead and choose our raffle winner. And I do just want to say thank you, Tony, and thank you if anyone is on here from Axsys too. Thank you for being great partners and help making this webinar possible. So for the two today, DESS and Axsys are both giving away $250 in store credit. So we will be choosing two winners, and we will follow up with you by the email that you registered with for this webinar. So the two randomly selected raffle winners are Dr. Guy Gunakar And we have Jasmine Nafisi. I hope I said that right. But congratulations, you two are our winners today. And we will send you a follow-up email and we'll coordinate how to get that to you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats. And everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. This webinar will be uploaded to the DESS US YouTube, and we'll also be sending it out via email as well.
Okay, very
All
good. Thank you.
right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Bob. Good to see you.
It's
Thanks,
See
Tony.
you guys.
Thanks,
Darren.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye
Julie.
now.
Thanks, Greg.
Have a great weekend.
Hey
Thank you.
guys.